All right, Robert.
Sir,
It looks like depending on when our real estate chat viewers are watching this, we're recording on March 5th, 2024. March 6th is what's happening tomorrow or March.
regular bank rate announcement.
All right, and the good news is our real estate chat chatters who have liked and subscribed, who are supporting the no rate cut camp will probably get what they want tomorrow. Do you know why, Robert?
Do I know why? Well, actually got an interesting new idea on that, that every other meeting they give a intensive monetary policy report and in-depth study of everything, and this is not one of those. So this
Oh,
this is a hiccup one rather than a definitive one.
so that's
Or
okay. So that might be one of the reasons. And another reason on this episode of Real Estate Chat with
Jonder Perez.
and Robert Eid is this headline that Robert has shared with me in Financial Post. Spring housing market resurgence could give Bank of Canada pause on rate cuts. So a cut in April, quote, would be about the dumbest thing the central bank could do, unquote. Scotiabank's direct quote says, we'll link to this article. Whoops, kind of zoomed in a bit too much. There's Mr. Benjamin Tall, who's going to be speaking at Remax Hallmark Connect,
Right?
Remax
That's
Hallmark
pretty
Connect
soon.
March.
Yeah.
Losing my Remax Hallmark Connect March 18, March 19, right? And
Yeah.
March 19, Robert, we have Mr. Benjamin Tall speaking at our Remax Hallmark event. So
What a
we'll link
catch.
that as well. But read the article, read the article. And Robert, why don't you give us a summary before you go into reading the stats? Because apparently the spring market has resurged, which, if that is a word, which typically happens in spring anyway. Like sales go up, prices, average prices go up, activity goes up, multiple offer goes up, interest goes up, like not the interest rate, but general interest in the market. So before we go into a deep dive into your stats, like give us a bit of a glimpse into why there will not be a rate cut.
There will not be a rate cut because it's too early. There will not be a rate cut because the data from 2 months ago doesn't indicate it, and because the current data on Toronto, I'm not sure about other markets because I don't work there, is showing hot, hot, hot. Now we're going to look into it. Is it really hot, 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 or is it A or is it B? But the first paragraph here says it. Most economists agree that it's just a matter of time before the Bank of Canada cuts interest rates. But as the bank prepares to unveil the latest rate decision on Wednesday, at least one is warning economists that the potential for a hot spring housing market and stimulated federal, getting ready for the election, budget could push the timeline for those cuts back to the fall. And this is the
Hmm.
big debate. Is there going to be six? No. Is there going to be four cuts? No. Is there going to be two cuts? Yes. And maybe more, but it's going to have to be a calamity of tremendous uh, portent, if that's a word, for calamities, for there to be a bunch of rate cuts. And the current surge that we're feeling in the pace of the market, not the number of units, not the price necessarily, but the pace is what the Bank of Canada doesn't want to see. So that's exactly what he's saying here. Hot spring market with another round of stimulative government budgets that heaps on more spending makes him skeptical. So, yes, there's an article, and it's pretty good and balanced opinion from Barbara Schechter of the Finn Post.
Okay, well, what we're about to see is, isn't it typical, Robert, that in the spring this stuff happens anyway? So it's sort of like saying, we know that spring market this is going to happen. Like we weren't planning these rate cuts anyway, but there's all the more reason why there will not be any rate movements, right?
Well, the people who thought it was going to be March are wrong, and they knew they were wrong, but they're just revving things up. Okay, that's their purpose. And that's why they got the coverage because they were revving things up. Everybody likes to hear that. Now, there's a certain number of relators, as they mispronounce it in the United States, and buyers who said, well, if rates are going to go down, they thought in early February, well, I'm going to buy in anticipation of the rates going down. And quite frankly, I got an overnight thing from my neighborhood DLC mortgage broker saying that yes, 5.09 is now what they've got as the posted rate for 5 years. So rates are coming down on the ground when you're actually in there saying, well, I'd like to buy a house and I put an offer in, and what are you going to give me? Or else I'll go somewhere else. Rates are coming down from where they were padded not too many weeks ago.
May, June, maybe.
Well, something's going to happen by June for sure. Something's going to happen by the at September coming, and we may get another one in the middle of the fall, just depending on how many terrible and how many good things happen in what order.
Oh, so it's going to be a fine line to walk and make these announcements. So let's jump into spring market. A couple of days ago, for those of you who have watched our episode where Robert projects these before the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, Robert, you were pretty close. I mean, price ended up being a bit higher than what you anticipated, but sales were almost right on. Why don't you go right into telling us, or we'll start with what Trev is showing in terms of the
Okay, well, I
comparison of
started with
sales.
the Treb charts because the Treb charts are sort of like unbiased, except they only show 3 past years. Now, if you looked at just this and said, how are sales doing? You couldn't say it's sort of mixed. That it's up from January. It was supposed to be up from January, but it's down from the blue and from the orange. So what should we really be expecting for March? Doesn't tell you a darn thing. So the next one is my unconventional school year starts in September, goes through to August. And we've got a dotted line that shows us that we're coming up towards the good part of the market. And we're coming up so that we're only the 19th best market that's, about 20% off average. So it's not bad. It's not good. It's weak, but it's weak. It's like, someone who's building up their strength. And so they're not strong, but they're not weak. And we'll see what March brings us. We'll see what March brings. Now we have a week off in the middle of that for spring break, which sometimes throws a pause into, anybody that's got any money is going on holidays then with the kids. But so it's not fabulous, but it's not bad. The next one is the Mitch Corman chart, where we see that the price over $2 million is recovering. It's not as big as it was during the boom, 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 but here we are up over where we were in most other times. A share of the market is up over 6. And there are many houses that are $2 million now that were not $2 million 5 years ago. So there's nothing wrong with it's active everywhere. It's not the cheapies, it's not the most expensive, it's everything. Next one divides the 416 away from or apart from the 905. And so 905 is a much bigger area. There's 150% sales in there, and that's reflected here, 36, 36, and 1971. But both of them are about 20% off their 10-year average. So it's not concentrated here or there. It's everywhere. So sales are fine, but they're not breaking any records on sales. So what's the other component? The other component, we go next page, is price. We start again with price, an absolutely useless graphic from the Toronto Real Estate Board because it starts at 0. Are prices ever going to go to 0? No. Are they going to go to 500? No. But let's start the chart at 500 so you get a variation in the price. So this looks like everything's very even except for the one crazy year, which was the anomaly of 2022. Well, okay. Next. So this is mine with too many graphs on there. But what it does show that high flyer up there at the top, which is 2022, just like in the Treb chart. Everything else is demonstrating a sort of a similar pattern, but we did have a raging boom in the last quarter of 21 and the first quarter of 22, and there it shows us. Because right now, if we look at the yellow box, we have the second highest February at 1108. We are 16.9% off the top February, which is the top month ever. We are 1%, 1.2% better than a year ago. So not losing, not gaining. And we are 7% off of May of last year, which was the trailing 12-month peak. And we are up 8% from January, 1 month. Now I said it was going to be 6. It went up 8. So that's why I was wrong. Okay. So we look at it a little bit differently. This is where we have the school year again. And we can see that we're tracing the pattern from last year. We're not getting anywhere near the 22 pattern. We're going up in the spring a little bit, and we were down in the June. So, that's probably what we're going to see. And things may come along to change it, but inertia doing the same thing over and over again is what most people do. Okay, go to the next one. Okay, now here we go again on prices. This is showing the 905 separate from the 416, and there's less difference. Still 905 is ahead by 5%. And, they were ahead. Look at that blue line way up at the top in the middle. They had a way higher peak, and it came earlier, and it fell down more. And so it's more volatile. But it all adds up to 1,108,000 as the average price for the Toronto Metroplex. So if we add it into our, what does this compare to other booms and busts? The last 5 booms, we zero them out at 100%, and then we run them out for several months, and we saw a big gain. If you look at the red line with the white dots, we saw a big gain in between January and February. Now, last year we saw that as well. Is it happening again? Can't tell you. Our prices now are 83% of what the peak was. So that's not out of keeping with what we have picked as our model that we're following from 1986 to 1996, but there are many, 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 many things in the world that are different between the late 80s, late 90s, and now, not the least of which is quantitative loosening. So we'll see. Okay, supply. Is it people expecting that rates are going to go up, or is it people who are absolutely serious about buying something, anticipating inflation, and being squeezed because there's nothing for sale? Well, guess what? There's 2 months of inventory on the market. We were wondering when it got up to 4% is at an average, oh, gee, where's it going to go? But now we're right back down to 2. We're not down at 0.5, half of a month or anything like that. But the average for the last 10 years has been 166, and 5 years 149, which were boom conditions. So now we're at 2 months. So the mix between buyers and sellers is not great. It's tight. So we go to the next one, we see new listings. And the way the Toronto Real Estate Board calculates listings, it says that listings have gone up so that they have like 11,000 something. Right? Now, we'll have another little insight into that in 2 slides from now, but the supply is not gigantic, but it's not diminished. Grandma and grandpa are saying, okay, let's sell the house. There's lots of estates. There's lots of people who are saying, okay, we can finally get out of here. We were underwater for so many months. Let's sell this investment. And they're doing it. So active inventory is the next one. And that just says the number. So 11,000. Now, 11,000 is over the average in red of 5 years of just 9,500 and 10 years of 10.3. But the 16-year average was, as far as I go back, of 12.7. It's a little bit under that. So there's plenty of room for more listings to be on the market in February, but we saw low inventory all the time and good sales in December, good sales in January, and good sales in February for February. So it ate it up. So how do we get a barometer on this? What we call the sales to listing ratio, sales to new listing ratio, of how many of the new listings are being absorbed. And then they come up with ratios of what it says, somewhere around 45%, 45%. If it's less than that, take up of the new listings by sales, then it's the buyer's market conditions. If it's 65% more than that, then buyers are gobbling up everything and there's not enough supply. So if we take that and try and look at it a little more in depth, we see that on the next slide, the new listings and the net new listings. So the red line is where we subtract the do-overs. That last month, according to the board, I say there's more, but according to the board, there was 1,800 duplicates, meaning that the same broker with the same owner with the same property during the currency of the original listing period terminated the contract and put it through again at a different price. It's a way of refreshing the listing, making it come through the system again new, but it's still the same listing. So if we subtract and only look at that red line, then we see that the sale, it's instead of being as the Trebs numbers say, 2.75 above the 10-year average. If we subtract the relists, we're actually 21 and change percent below the 10-year average. So inventory is tight. I guess we have to know that. And anybody who's looked at new listings and the listings that come through as a you come through your overnights, you say, oh, I've seen that before. That was for sale last November. That was for sale last week. What happened? Okay, it's terminated. Okay, so what does this turn into? And what does this turn into in terms of sales to listing ratio? Well, same thing with the red line and the black line. That there were 1,816 terminates, and that's about 19% of the net new listings, as contrasted with it being 15.9% of the brand new listings where you count everything twice. So the sales remain the same at 5,607. So the net new listing says that 58.5% of the new listings were gobbled up by the buyers. The standard method said 49%. Now, 49% says it's balanced, so that's what everybody, including Korea on down, is going to say it's balanced because the sales to listing ratio was 49%. But it's actually very close to 60%, which is seller's market conditions. Now, I think every single person that's been showing houses or looking at houses or has a listing that sold in 3 days will say to you, yeah, it's pretty good. If you've got a good listing in a good neighborhood, it's gone. There's 5 offers on it. And we won't even talk about this low listing nonsense, but it's much better than any other statistic we'll talk about. And the last one is the days in the market. So look at the days in the market plunging down, still higher than they should be by quite a bit, 24 or 40%, but plunging down from where they were. The number of days that it takes for a property to be sold, and then all of the iterations of a listing have gone down from like nearly 50 to 37, and from over 30 to under 25. So what's going on? It's early spring. People are guessing about interest rates, and they're feeling good generally.
Any surprises here, Robert? I mean, I guess every year we shoot this episode for the spring market. We're going to see what it takes off and whatnot. But is there really any surprises here? And I guess one of the variables this year will be consumer confidence, and another variable associated with that is affordability. And so, I mean, I guess the media, economists, you, me are right when we say that naturally, if the rates are cut, obviously it would ignite the market because more buyers, I hate to use the word consumer, but it is what it is. More consumers would enter the market because of affordability gets affected. And because of that, then of course, the Bank of Canada would want to reel in the interest rates again. And so maybe they pause on cuts. I'd hate to think that they'd increase it. But if there was a theme to this year's spring market, 2024 spring market, Robert, what would that theme be?
Let's hope it's not repeating last year's false rally. It might be.
And if that happens?
Well, we'll just do last year all over again. Rate cuts will be delayed, and the higher interest rates will continue to kill small businesses all across the land. And until they can come up with a way of isolating real estate mortgages interest cost, which I guess they can through the stress test, so they just didn't think of that yet, so that everybody else's interest rate can go down, your car loans and everything like that can go down, then 5-6% is expensive based on a thought that it should be 1%, but based on when it was 10% and 8%, that a lot of people can imagine saying, what are you complaining about? Because the prices are so much higher that you're carrying a much higher burden. You have a $700,000 mortgage rather than a $375,000.
Yeah, it's all arbitrary. It depends on the lens of whomever is watching this. And, everybody's, of course, entitled to opinions, and we welcome your opinion. So make sure you type that into the comments. Any final words or advice to our Real Estate Chat viewers who are, perhaps this is the market now that they're entering and they're buying or they're considering selling? When should they hop on? So buyers, sellers, what would you advise, Robert?
Buyers, look hard, make offers. Don't worry if other people are making competing bids. You know what your budget is, make offers. Sellers, stick it up there. You might be surprised.
There you go. And stick around for more episodes of Real Estate Chat in the future. We'll see you then. Take care and bye for now.
See you later.